Mr. Tim here from Premier Martial Arts in Aurora, ready to go over our next piece of curriculum. Hey guys, before we get started today, let's take a second and recite our student creed. All right, take a second and just remind yourself all of these things that we remind ourselves every day about why we train and what it is that we're trying to accomplish as great martial artists. Anyway, get together, set, bow. Students, let's get started today. The first thing that I want us to work on is just getting our legs and our hips warmed up, ready to do some kicks. Last week, I gave you a little challenge to go back and forth between your front kick and your round kick chamber. So let's start just by alternating these two things, right? Holding each chamber for about 1 second at a time. So now, starting from a neutral position, I'll start with one leg, I'll chamber it up, make sure I point my knee forward, hold it here for a second before I rotate my body, and I let that chamber come out and turn. I want to rewind, set it right back down, right away, go to my other leg, chamber that knee up, point that knee forward, hold it here for a second, and then I'm rotating my hip as I twist the rest of my body and point that round kick chamber forward for a second. After this, then I'll rewind and I'll set it down and go right into the other side. Perform 10 of these on each side before moving on into our kicking combinations today. All right, students, now let's move on and let's practice going from our front kick to our round kick, but now extending out our kicks on each side. So, starting here, I chamber my front kick. I want to take my time and make sure I really extend my leg all the way. I'm going to start rather low, and then as we go, then I'll start to pick up the kicks high. But the first is just focusing on that technique. Chamber, I execute my front kick out, making sure that I'm really reaching my leg as straight as I can before I rechamber. Now, when I rechamber, I want to make sure that I'm keeping my core engaged. I'm keeping my chest up, right, and my head up so that I can have great balance ready to move on to the next thing. Then I'll push that knee forward, I'll rotate it out to this round kick position, and then from this round kick position, doing the same thing, extending my round kick out, really doing my best to push my leg all the way straight before I bring that rechamber all the way back. Once I do that, I'll suck my knee back in, set it down, and we'll do the same thing on the other leg. Starting just with that front kick, chambering my knee up high, getting full extension, holding it for a second, really challenging my muscles to be strong and stable in that position. Once I rechamber, turning my hip, right, turning my knee, and then extending my round kick out in that position too, pushing my leg all the way extended, holding it for a second before I go for that rechamber. Take your time, do your very, very best. If the first few times we go through it, or maybe this, our first day of getting those double kicks in like this, we start to lose our balance a little bit. That's totally fine, but keep pushing yourself to make your body stronger and better at those techniques. All right, students. Now let's put our front kick and round kick in combination together with speed. Now, when we do it now, I'm going to get in my guard stance. The leg that I'm going to kick with, I'm going to put in front of me. I'm going to quickly fire out my front kick, put it back on the floor before quickly snapping a round kick up and over. So I'm going to start with that front kick right away. I bring it down to touch the floor. Now I want to make sure that I bring it back to the floor with great balance so that I can very quickly, once my front kick touches the floor, turn my hip and snap a round kick up too. Right? I want to do that quick. So from here, we'll go front kick. As soon as it hits the floor, round kick. Front kick, round kick. Front kick, round kick. After performing this a few times on one side, switch your stance all the way, and then your new front leg, do the same thing, firing out that front kick, setting it down with great balance, and then right away, going into your round kick. Quick, front kick, round kick. All right, students, let's continue on our theme of speed and let's start working on some boxing combinations. Let's start really simple with some 3-punch combinations today with an exercise mixed in between them. So the first one that we're going to do, we're in our guard stance. What we're going to do, we're going to fire cross, hook, cross. And as soon as I finish that second cross, the third punch, right away, I'm going to drop down, do my best push up, pop right back up to my feet. And then again, cross, hook, cross, right away, down for the push-up, back up to my feet. Make sure you finish retracting that cross here before you drop down for the push-up. Making sure that I'm ready, start to finish, finishing all of my punches before we move on. Perform this 50 times as fast as you can before moving on. All right, students, let's move on and do one more combination like this. We're just going to reverse it rather and go hook, cross, hook. After that hook right there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to squat down to my back and do a great sit-up. Once we finish that sit-up, pop it right back up to our guard stance, doing it again. Again, it's hook, cross, hook, squatting down, sit up, back up to our feet, ready to go. Same thing with this one. Take your time, make sure your techniques are the best you can make them, right? Be fast going from one thing to the next, and really challenge yourself. Perform this 50 times before moving on. All right, students, now for some self-defense combative tactics, let's think about today and let's practice some elbow strikes. In my opinion, elbow strikes are one of the most effective, but then one of the safer strikes for us to throw, as far as being able to keep everything close, keeping our guard up, and not hurting our some of the smaller bones in our hands, defending ourselves, ready to use the sharper parts or the thicker parts of my forearm, and then of course my elbow and inch or two up or an inch or two back. Anyway, let's start from a neutral stance, and then going quickly from our neutral stance into simple forward elbows. Now when I do simple forward elbows, if I elbow with this hand, I want my other hand to come up and really protect my head here as this one lifts, and then I rotate through. Now, right now I'm staying in my neutral stance, but it's totally fine to take a step forward and step into your combative attacks. Just make them quick from here. Step in, elbow strike. Come back, take a breath. Quick from here, elbow strike. All right? Practicing that on both sides, our forward elbow. All right, students, moving on after our forward elbows, let's talk about doing sideways elbows, right? If we have to defend ourselves in a self-defense situation, it's not always going to be that a threat approaches me from straight on all the time. I have to be ready to, protect myself at some of, the more unorthodox angles, or at least being able to start my scenarios from there. So it's important that we practice combative strikes to the side and combative strikes behind us. Anyway, elbow strikes to the side. So again, I'm going to start in my neutral position. Talking about the technique, pretty similar. If I'm going to elbow this way, then my opposite hand, I want to bring my palm all the way up to about where my eyebrow is. Again, it's just always a great habit to protect the most important part of your body, which is your head. So I'm going to make sure I bring up my whole forearm to protect, even if I'm not 100% sure where the next threat might come from. I just want to have that up there by default. When I bring this hand up here, I'm going to take this hand and I'm going to reach it just in front of my face here. The analogy that I always like to use and hear from some of my instructors was think of like Batman on the phone. So this is my phone, I'm up talking on the phone, and this is Batman covering his face with his cape, something like that. But anyway, from here, then all I'm going to do is take this hand, and as if I'm pulling on that side, I'm just going to pull my elbow out to the side, right? So think about that technique, and then of course practice it fast, going from this neutral position quickly, like the electricity going through a switch when you turn it on. As soon as I'm ready, my hands come up, I look that way, and I pull that elbow to the side. You can practice this from your neutral position without stepping, but then of course I can practice stepping in to my elbow strike also. Take some time, practice this on both sides. All right, students, now after we practice our sideways elbow, now what I want you to do is as soon as you throw your elbow to one side, I want you to immediately turn your guard stance this way, right? Again, I might start the scenario from my side, but obviously I'm going to be much better equipped to deal with an attacker that way if I'm facing them. So make sure you practice that habit of once you start your combative attacks to your side or behind you even, going quickly into your guard stance, ready for whatever. All right, black belt training students, now let's grab our bow staffs and let's get ready to do some practice with this today. Remember, when we're going to practice with our bow staff, make sure you ask your parents' permission. Make sure you're not breaking anything in the house. In fact, it's been so beautiful outside lately. I would even recommend go get some sunlight while you practice with your bow staff. That way you have plenty of space, keeping everything and everybody safe while we practice. All right, students, now that we got some space, let's work on one of my favorite just kind of tricks in coordination practice with our bow staff. So what I'm going to do first, I'll just pick my bow staff up in front of me like this. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to slide it down to that bottom third on that side. Now, we'll say this is our right hand. So if it's in my right hand on this side and I'm grabbing towards the bottom third, then I'm going to take the thumb side of my bow staff right here, and I'm going to take it and reach it across my body and touch it on the floor like this, right? So again, that position, if I bring it in front of me, I slide that hand down. I identify it. Pinky side is here, thumb side is here. I take the thumb side and I let it fall across my body. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my opposite hand and I'm going to put it palm up, so that both of my thumbs are facing that same direction that way. This one is palm up here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently, with your bow staff, right, tap the floor, but then I'm going to pick it up, and I want it to push right into like the L bend of my finger here. So I have it palm up, I'm going to put it right into that bend. Now I'm going to start to grip it right here the best that I can. I'm going to push with that bottom hand so that it turns over and it's in my hand. Now notice, I should right away be towards the bottom half or towards the bottom third. Immediately, I'm going to take this hand now and take that thumb side and reach it to the ground across my body here. I give it a little tap. Once it's tapped to the floor, this hand comes palm up, both of my thumbs facing the same direction, and I'm going to flick it right into the back of that spot there again. Once I start to feel it in my hand, then I'll push, get that grip right away, tap the other side, palm up, thumbs are facing the same direction, put it right into the bend of my hand here. All right, students, after you've taken the time to set up that coordination of having this palm up and getting it into the back of my hand, once you're confident in that aim, then you start adding some speed. Now it's not so much me placing it into my hand and pushing it through every time, but once I tap the floor and I get that hand ready, I'll give it a little toss and just bring it up into my hand there. I bring it across here. This hand's ready. Before I even think about tossing it, I tap the floor and I give it a little toss up, and I just catch it right there. Notice how we're starting real simple with just a little toss right into it. Not trying to get too crazy with the flip just yet, just making sure that I'm getting it right into that spot that I want it to get every time. But now that I'm giving it that little toss, I can go a little bit faster, right? Be a little bit more fluid, and still practice that coordination there. All right, students, great practice today. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all staying safe, being good to yourself and to your families in this time. Anyway, if you haven't done your Black Belt Excellence assignment, go ahead and check out the other videos about positive self-image, right? Consistency. Those are all pieces of our Black Belt Excellence things. And make sure you email in your assignments. If you have any questions or anything like that, again, feel free to email us or send us a message, however you can. But anyway, ready for you to get set. Wow. And I'll see you next time.